Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzo, your host of the Leaders of Art podcast. I have a repeat, wonderful repeat with a person that has become a good friend of mine, Mr. Randy Brown, or Coach Randy. Amazing guy. We just had a wonderful chat for the past half an hour on life and basketball. He's a professional basketball coach for 10, 20 plus years at college level. Yet many of his students go on to play in the NBA, some of the names being almost by now household names. I'm not going to mention them. You have to watch part one because I did mention them, and he might
Mhm.
drop the names as well in this way, in this part two. So, Coach, welcome to the show again, brother. It's an honor having you.
Thanks, Payman. This is a comfortable place for me sitting here talking with you, and thank you so much for just giving me a voice. And it's just the only way I can hand my gift off to other people is to be on podcasts like yours, and you do a phenomenal job.
Well, this is what it's all about. You're very welcome. This is what I'm passionate about: giving a voice, giving an outlet, a platform to wonderful people with heart-centered, intentions to do good out there. Because it's all about doing good. Sure, we all need to make money, but let's do so in a way that's impactful, meaningful, and purposeful. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So let's resume. Let's continue from last week. So last week we talked a lot about your journey, your path. You have a wonderful path, very inspiring. Now, you mentioned at one time that your life took a turn in the wrong direction. You had some issues with the law and all that, and that ended up in you going to prison. Tell us about that and share with us what it's like. What it's like, how long you were there, and what is life like in prison,
Okay.
and talk about that and some of the lessons you learned. So anything you want to share about that?
Okay. I would start, Payman, by explaining where I was mentally and emotionally and physically at the time that I made a crucial decision in my life. And this was the fall of 1997. I had just lost a job and probably took it as hard and as bad as anybody ever has. And I mean, to the to the degree that I was pretty just almost vigilant about the fact that I shouldn't have been fired and the reasons for being fired and those types of things. So, but it happens every day to people, a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I was pretty immature in my approach to adversity at the time. When we lost our children in 92 and 98, I was not prepared to grieve properly. I did the first time. I faked about half of it, but I wholeheartedly went after the other half, trying to find some meaning behind what had happened, and followed what my mentors and the pastors were telling me about how to go through the grieving process. But Payman, when it happened the second time, I wanted no part of grief. All I wanted to do is either check out of life, which was an option, and chose against it. And actually, I went and got advice from my good friend David Staff and my pastor, and we had one of the most meaningful, deepest, significant conversations I've ever had in my life. And so fortunately, I didn't choose that path. But what I did choose was secrecy, comfort, numbing, anything that will relieve the pain. Now, there's a lot of ways to do that, right? So here's a guy that's not coaching. So he's battling this whole thing about identity crisis, which I was to a major degree. And I'm still moaning and having a pity party about losing my job. And I made a crucial, maybe one of the most crucial decisions of my life. And that's that fall, we ordered a computer to come to the home. That's when desktops were being kind of shipped for kind of the first time. It was about 96, 97. So we had a computer in the house, and I didn't work that year. So I was in charge of our 3 girls, which was awesome. I've never done that before. But I started to use discretionary time to look at pornography on the computer. And with addiction, and I have to be careful with my words here, because what I learned in the treatment program, which I'm going to talk to in depth in prison, they taught me the language of responsibility. And if you're listening to this, I think it'd be really interesting for you to just take some time and think about what language of responsibility means for you. It's phenomenal how many times we think we said something a certain way with maybe a certain volume, or we thought it was a kind comment, but it really had an edge to it. And no, I didn't say that word. I didn't use that word. What we do as coaches, I think coaches that are serious about becoming better coaches, they mic themselves and they then go back and listen to every word they said in a practice. And it's phenomenal. And I can't tell you, almost to a T, almost 100% of the time, they'll say, I had no idea I was that sarcastic. I had no idea. I mean, I got personal with two of our players making comments in practice. I didn't think I ever did that. And they count negatives versus positives. Okay, those types of things. So it's really kind of amazing what we say. But I learned the language of responsibility, which means that instead of saying, well, I went on a computer and this thing popped up. All right. And I know well and good from that treatment that I received from that staff of doctors and treatment specialists in prison. I believe that until they really got to the bottom of it and said, no, you didn't stumble upon anything. You meant to. Okay, now that's a shift in words and that's a shift in perspective. And I made a lot of those shifts because I was an open man. I was completely wide open to change, because I said, if I'm going to be here, and this is not a vacation destination by any means, federal prison, if I'm going to be here, I am going to take every opportunity to make myself a better person. Why? Because I have a responsibility. I'm going to return back to society after 2 years. It was a 2-year sentence. And I have got to go into a very difficult situation with my family, with the public, with friends and people I love. And how do I want to go back? Do I want to go back tainted? I can imagine without this treatment program, I would have come out pretty bitter and defensive. Crap, that's the way I went in. I don't want to come out like that.
Yeah, let me pause a little bit, because that's fascinating. Now, before we move any further, I want to talk about, because that's something that it's been fascinating for a long time to know. What is like being in jail? So tell us about your experience. Were you in a cell by yourself? Were you with someone else? Tell us about how was this day-to-day life of being there, and did you have like a routine, wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and taken for a walk, breakfast, just like in the movies, you go out, get some fresh air for like maybe half an hour a day?
Sure.
Tell us about the day-to-day.
Okay.
First of all,
Yeah.
how were you there in a cell just by yourself, or were you sharing a cell with someone else?
Yeah, I was sharing, and
Okay. How many
and I'll
people?
also just one other.
Okay. Did you guys get
Yeah.
along well?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, on purpose, they changed up your cellie, which is the term used, but they changed your cellie up a lot.
Why?
And I just think it was to keep you off balance a little bit.
Okay.
I think that if they found the wrong two people that got together,
Right.
it might be trouble, possibly.
Mhm.
Or one person might be intimidating to the other, whatever. They were always changing. But we didn't have, I think it's important to, since we're getting into detail on this, we just had a door to our room. We didn't have wrought iron bars like you see in the movies and things. So it was just a small room. I mean, it was closer to a dorm room, although Manute Bol could have touched both walls this way and both walls that way. I promise you.
Wow.
I mean, it was tiny. And humility becomes you can either fight humility or you can accept it. And I accepted it because I go from a life where I had a lot, and I had about everything I needed. I had, beautiful home with my family, et cetera, et
Successful
cetera,
career and all that. Yeah, yeah.
to a minute bowl-sized room where
On a bunk bed.
I could only have 4 books out on a iron, a metal table. There's a little tiny desk and a little chair, and then there were 2 lockers about 2.5 feet by about 3 feet, and everything else had to go in there. So here I go from having a home to living out of a 4 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot metal locker with one tiny little desk and a small chair. And that was it. And 2 bunk beds.
Wow. So you mentioned 4 books. So are those books that you brought with you, or was there a library on premise, or did your family send those to you, or were you allowed to receive packages?
Yes, I was. But one of the really, one of the really difficult things that happened when they called my name, I actually got a chance to go to North Carolina. So we drove there I drove with my father and my brother, which is rare because most of the time you have to get on a bus wherever in California and work your way to North Carolina across the country. It can take 6 months to get over there.
Wow.
Okay. I was afforded a self surrender, they call it, which means I was just told on this day and this time, be here. And that's one time in your life you want to be early. Believe me.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm sitting there with my dad and my father, and all of a sudden they call my last name. And man, it was a fearful feeling ripping through me because I knew they had to leave and I wouldn't see him for a while. And so during the intake, they asked for all my, of course, you got to change out of your clothes and
to make you shave your head like in the movies.
No, I had an inmate give me haircuts. I had a guy that was in our unit give me haircuts. Yeah. So in the intake, because I had brought, the only book I brought was my Bible. And they took it from me.
Okay.
And they said it is not allowed in.
No books.
And in a moment, I thought, I'm in a different world. I'm in a world within a world, because if you can tell me, I remember I kind of questioned the guy, like, are you kidding? This is my Bible. I would think this could go with me anywhere. And he grabbed it from me, and fortunately I got it back. But I was shocked that book was taken from me and not allowed in that prison.
So they took everything, your wallet, your watch, to put it in a locker for you until you're done. Okay.
Yep.
Your clothes, they give you the clothes that you wear inside, I guess.
2 sets, 2 shirts, 2 pants, underwear, socks.
They give you that. Okay.
That's about it.
And then did you guys have a routine? Like every day you wake up at a specific time, or you wake up whenever you want it?
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Although it was really, really good for me, the regimentation. So at 7 o'clock, you're up and you're counted.
Okay.
And then your day begins at and then breakfast, and then your day begins whether you work, because everybody worked.
What kind of work?
Well, I'll fill you in a second, but
okay.
We were in a building that housed the treatment facility, which I was a part of. Thank goodness. I mean, it's one of the great gifts a guy could ever receive, being in the position I was in, and mentally and emotionally the shape I was in. It was an absolute godsend. And I don't know the wisdom of the federal judge that recommended I go there to Butner, North Carolina, to this sex offender treatment program, because what I had done is I'd done some things online that necessitated it being a federal charge, sending some emails across state lines, those types of things. Okay. And so this federal judge said, I know right where you need to be. And he must have seen something in me, because he kind of wanted to save me, I felt. So he sent me to a place where they had a treatment program. Are you kidding? I thought I would just sit in there and rot for 2 years and come out, and I would have been in horrible shape. But no, for some reason in my life, I was gifted this opportunity to go into this, what I now recognize as a world-class treatment program. I didn't know it at the time. I fought it. Actually, when he announced it, Payman, in the courtroom, when he announced it, I was absolutely sick, because I thought, why would I want to go into a sex offender treatment program with a bunch of scumbags who have done all this bad stuff? Okay, language of responsibility, that's language of irresponsibility, right?
Absolutely. Wow.
So it came out of me, I mean, instantly in the courtroom. I thought, I'm not going there. And, just full of myself, entitled. I'm thinking that I was in charge of where I was going to go. All that stinking thinking, as Zig Ziglar calls it. So it actually ended up being the thing that I think puts me with you here this morning talking, is that decision that he made that day,
Yes.
unbeknownst to me at the time.
I think, no, sorry, I don't think. I realized that everything happens for a reason. Even the tragedies, the crap we go through, the lowest of the lows, humiliations and all that, because they are meant to teach us beautiful lessons, just like you mentioned last night as well. These are, and I strongly believe, in my humble opinion, that, we are, God, universe puts those obstacles for us in order, first, step one, for us to overcome them, step two, to grow from them. And the most beautiful gift is then to share that story with the world. And that's one of the things I love saying. And you mentioned that yet last night when you said, I said, wow, you're speaking my language, brother. So that's a question I want to ask you later. So I'm going to hold that thought for now, but let's get, because I'm really curious. I want to get to know more about the day-to-day life of being in prison. So you said,
so
you wake up and then they get you to work. What kind of work do they, is it like physical work? Is it work on bettering yourself, or what kind of work? Teaching you skills, or?
It varies. Typically what they do is they put you on kitchen duty when you're brand new, when you come in.
Peeling potatoes and cooking for the others. Okay.
Well, I was on the serving line.
Okay.
And so it was pretty easy, but they work your mind pretty good. I'll tell you.
Sure, the masters.
They would come to the door at 4 a.m. and pick you up, and you'd walk down to the chow hall, as they call it, and you would sit at a table until 6 o'clock.
Just sitting. Wow.
No pen, no paper, no magazine, no speaking. And I remember the first day, and I'm like, when does this thing start? Okay, so certainly. Now there were guys in the back, but I was on that serving line, so I was. You know what they're doing? It's a bit of an initiation. It's a bit of a punishment within a punishment. And I'd sit there, and they said, and I'll tell you, Payman, I'm the kind that, of course, I didn't have a cell phone. Some did, but I didn't.
Back then there was no cell phones,
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a no cell phone zone, but there were cell phones. Okay. There was about everything a guy wanted in there. Mm-hmm. So I'm a paper and pen guy. And I said, I'll tell you what, I mean, I'm just absolutely naked without a paper and pen. And I went in there and sat for 2 hours. That was 2 prized hours to me that I could have been, because what I wanted to do when I went in, I wanted to collect my thoughts, and I filled about 12 journals with journaling. Yeah, I wrote unbelievably all day, every day.
So when they make you sit down there, do they leave you in peace, silence, or are they making all kind of noises to prevent you from being still
No,
and quiet.
no, it's fairly quiet,
Okay,
but it's just punishment for, you know,
sure.
I could have slept for 2 hours, you know, but if you think anybody cares about you
Yeah.
in the, no, they don't. They
Speaking
have a job to do. They're told how to do their job, and they do not care about the human being. And I mean
speaking of
that's
speaking of sleeping, so you said in those days you woke up at 4 o'clock. So what time did you go to bed? Did you have a specific time, or you went to bed whenever you felt like it?
the last call. A call is when you hear an announcement to say that, you know, last call. Well, the last time that that we got had to go to our room and be counted was at 10:30.
So wait a
And
second. So being in your room, meaning you could roam around the premises up until 10:30?
yes,
Okay, so that was
yes,
pretty lax. Okay.
but there's 4 calls during the day,
Okay.
so they're always got you in your room and counting. You
So
know,
you can mingle with other guys there. You can talk and all that. You can go to the library if there was a
you can't
library.
go to the library, but they had very limited times for the television, which was voted on as to what was being watched.
So what did the guys mostly want to watch there? Was it like some people wanted to watch basketball, some wanted to watch TV, the news? Was it like a fight or
just
was it
just stupid television is what they watched, except for Seinfeld. That was their best move, because
okay?
I would slip in and catch a Seinfeld episode once in
Oh
a
yeah.
while.
Yeah,
But
wow.
I mean, I remember guys coming around the unit and eliciting my vote. Hey, will you vote for the Packers Bears game or whatever whatever
I
it
don't give a
was?
football. Give me basketball, you know.
Right,
Just,
right. And I don't follow pro football at
yeah.
all. And I go, yeah, I mean, whatever, man. I mean, if it's one of my buddies, yeah, I'll send you a vote or whatever. I
Was it
thought that
easy
was,
to make friends with the other guys? Were they friendly? Were they all
well,
like everybody with a chip on the shoulder trying to be the tough guy? Because one thing that I really heard, especially the last few weeks, have been really, interested in following, mob lives and mob movies. There is, especially the Italian mobs. There is a guy on YouTube. He was the highest earning mob guy in the U.S., Michael Francesi. He was basically scamming the feds from the gas stations. He was not killing, but he was just scamming the feds with gas stations. He controlled all the gas stations in New York and Florida. So instead of, for example, buying the gas from the government, he was selling it directly to them. So he made a
okay.
crap ton of money. He was making
Yeah.
like $6 to $8 million a week, that kind of money. So this guy now he has a YouTube channel. Believe it or not, he went from one extreme, like Cosa Nostra, you're not able to talk about anything, to being on YouTube talking freely. So when this guy was talking about jail life and all that, I found that very fascinating. So have you heard of this guy Michael Francesi? And do you follow the mob? So what I want to know basically is how different is life in jail from what these mob guys, or maybe these mob guys are sent to different prisons with higher securities, I
Yeah.
guess.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, because these guys were
The
doing some
the
real
the
stuff.
very unique thing, Payman, about the situation I was in was there were 100 men in our building, in
Okay.
our unit, and because it was that was where the treatment facility was located, and that's where all the treatment uh, took place. And if not, I would have been in just a regular a regular building with nothing but 3-tier bunk beds in open air, and it is loud. And I mean 24/7 loud.
Yeah.
And again, I give it to Judge Longstaff, the federal judge who recommended to send me there, because it wasn't, it was prison, but it wasn't the prison that everybody thinks of, because it was a treatment facility, a treatment program in a building in a prison. Now, when you leave our building, you're in general population. So you're in contact with everybody else that's in there. 850 inmates, who all go to the chow hall and all go to the rec yard and all go to the recreation center. And so, yeah, you were in contact with everybody, but during the day, we were pretty much in this facility. Now, you were told or mandated to work half the day and then the other half of the day. So I worked in the morning, and then my program was in the afternoon. So
What do you
I
mean
got
your program?
my
Oh,
my
okay.
my
You have
treatment
leaders.
program.
Oh, okay.
And so 4 hours a day times
Mhm.
635 days, that's how much treatment I got to work on
Sure.
myself.
Wow.
Now that is unbelievable.
Sure.
In the
Now,
morning,
mhm,
then I is when I worked. Okay, so here's after I left the kitchen, and I basically left the kitchen because they keep you in there for a while, and then they, there's other guys coming in as new inmates all the
were you doing the
time.
dishes too, or just,
No,
serving the food?
I just served. I
Okay,
just
that's
served.
not bad. Okay.
I had one situation with one inmate who wanted a little bit more of what I
Mhm.
was serving.
Were you guys able to do that or no?
No. And I
Okay.
was told under no circumstances. So this guy was really testing me. And I looked at the COs, and they're going like this. No, don't give him any more. Well, it caused a rift between this fellow and I. And I'm telling you what,
Sure.
that was the last after I got rid or got done with that kitchen job and moved on, which was only about a week later. I never stepped foot in there again. I never went back to the chow hall for about 16 months.
Mhm.
The last 16 months I was there, I wouldn't go in there because that was a place where that I would be confronted, and I wanted no business with anything like that. So I thought, well, food's minor in this case.
Yeah.
I'll figure out a way to eat. And so I did. We have a there was a commissary, so you could order. I ate saltine crackers and peanut butter for the rest of my duration there, pretty much.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I also lost almost 50 pounds too.
Wow.
So, yeah, but not because of not eating. I walked 2,200 miles
Oh, wow. Per day.
in my
Oh, sorry.
in my
Yeah. In
time there.
total. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So I'll pick back up. Oh, you want to know what jobs after? So after I got out of the kitchen, thank goodness,
Yes.
and I got along with the guy that assigned the jobs, and so he kind of, he
That's
he
good. That's smart of you. That's
he
strategic.
knew
Yes.
oh, believe me, I know
You
how to
know
play
to make
those
friends with the
games.
right people. Yeah.
He said, I'll never forget. He goes, hey, I got a job over in this unit, and washing windows and sweeping floors and then cleaning showers and toilets in the bathroom. Man, I'm telling you, you talk about a tough job.
Yes.
That toilet shower job, when
Oh,
people
yeah.
just don't care. I mean, I won't even
Gross.
embellish.
Yes. I can imagine. Yeah.
So I became, a good friend of mine told me, ironically, before I left, he said, whatever job they give you, become the best in that whole facility at doing that job. And so here I am. And he said, if they ask you to be a janitor, you be the best janitor in the facility. Well, I became a janitor essentially. So I remembered my buddy Dan McCarney, a former college football head coach, telling me that. And so I took that to heart. And man, I washed the crap out of those windows and those floors and cleaning those bathrooms. I did it with pride because it was
Sure.
just the right way to go about things, and it helped time move on and those things. But and it wasn't it wasn't a tough job, it wasn't a physical job, but it was a job that needed to be done, and I did it to the
Sure.
best of my ability. That's just all I knew.
Yeah.
But there were various jobs. Yeah, there were a lot of different jobs around. And when he assigned me there, I'll never forget it. He assigned me there. He goes, hey, now listen, I'm only going to be able to pay you 12 cents an hour. I hope that's
Oh, they
okay.
pay you there. Wow. Okay.
And I'm like, man, how long do I have to be here, you know, to buy my next Lamborghini. If you don't have,
25 lifetimes.
if you don't have a sense of humor, at least an inside voice
Yeah.
that's got it. Because my inside voice was going all the time. I'm like, man, I'm gonna have to be here a long time for those 12 cents to add up.
Earlier you
Kiddingly,
mentioned
right?
something, speaking of money, earlier you mentioned that you were not going to the cafeteria to eat, but instead you're ordering crackers. How are you how are you ordering? Were you getting paid because they took your wallet? So you had were you working toward like a bartering? How were you
No,
getting?
there's a phone-based system where money can be sent in for you. So my
Okay.
wife always made sure that I had enough,
Mm.
enough in there to do what I needed to do.
So how much money per week would you need to be able to have the kind of food? And first of all, what kind of foods are available to order? What can you order there? Was it like pretty much open menu or just only the basics?
No, they had a sheet, and you just fill out a sheet and mark what you wanted.
Okay.
Saltine crackers, mark peanut butter, mark Diet Pepsi, maybe, whatever. If you needed a comb or you needed a whatever, I mean, it wasn't extensive, but you could get by on what they had.
So were they charging you market price or marked up prices or below prices or because
I don't remember exactly. I think it was pretty reasonable though.
Mm.
Yeah.
So did you guys have like free time to go outside? Because in the movies you see some guys, just talking, some guy just working out, some guys playing
Right.
basketball. And
Yep.
and did you play basketball? Did you start coaching other guys? Hey guys, let's play a game and I'm gonna be your coach and getting back into your element.
Well, no.
Okay.
I worked overtime
Mm,
to make sure that I didn't talk about what I had done previously as far as
coach.
be a high level Division I coach.
Did people know about that or you didn't tell anyone?
Well, they might have, but now in my facility, in my treatment facility, they knew because, of course, I'm giving my background and everything,
Sure.
right? I mean, those are guys you're closest
For
to.
the inmates? Yeah.
But yeah, but the others outside in the compound, I did not want my previous profession known because all they're looking for is somebody with a unique experience, and maybe it can help them get closer to somebody when they get out. Maybe they
Okay.
just want to hear stories. Maybe they want to ridicule or hurt me because of the privileges I've had prior to coming into prison. I mean, I read as much as I could, but I was wise enough to know that I'm going to work really hard to not let anybody know what I've done. Because what happens at that point, Payman, it separates me from everybody else. I don't want to
Sure.
be separated. I want to be the guy wearing the khaki top and the khaki pants and the black work boots every day, just like everybody else, just like the streets of New York, right? Everybody, there's thousands of people, they all kind of look the same and they all blend in. And I wasn't going to, I for sure wasn't going to let anybody know that. Now people knew,
How
but
tough was that to keep that part of you private? Because I'm sure people would come around and say, "Hey, Randy, what's up, bro? Just trying to have a conversation." So what were you doing before and trying to conversate with you? How tough was that and when you tried to, what did you tell them? Did you tell them I'm not interested, or did you just make up a story just to get rid of them?
I, you know, I just said I was a high school teacher, pretty much. You
Okay.
know, it really wasn't an issue, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Um, if it was, I don't think it would have headed in the right direction because, if they say, what do you think of Dean Smith at North Carolina? And if I said, I don't like Dean Smith, I probably got 35 enemies.
Yeah.
See what I mean? I mean, I thought this through to the point where I want to be as normal and vanilla as anybody else. You know,
That's smart.
ironically, which I haven't mentioned, this place that I was at was out in the forest in eastern North Carolina. But I was 30 miles from Duke University, North Carolina, and North Carolina State.
Amazing.
And a really weird thing happened. North Carolina won the national championship that first spring that I was there. And it really hit me because that next day they had a celebration at UNC. And I thought, I'm a half hour from a celebration for the national championship. And here I sit. It was almost as if I was sitting in there with them. I was that close. It was just a weird day. And I didn't, yeah, it was a tough day. It brought a lot of things to the forefront, you know, like, why am I here? Okay, accept the fact that you are here. Why? Because of decisions I made, not because of what anybody else did to me. And again, that's that language of responsibility and the way you think. And that was so helpful. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
they were amazingly helpful. So yeah, I was in that's basketball country now. You can't get much better than that.
Oh yeah. So wow. There's so many directions we can take this. So let me ask.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I have to add this. So you asked about basketball, and if I was over in that building, and before we were allowed to return and they opened the gates and stuff, I would watch the games that were being played, and it's some of the worst basketball a person could ever imagine. And people have asked me, they go, "Oh, were there great players there?" and all this. They've been watching too many movies. There were no great players in the games I saw. What I saw is a lack of responsibility, poor fundamentals, and an argument on every foul. That's what I saw. I don't call that basketball. So now, can you see why I tried to keep, my past a secret? Can you imagine me standing there in that environment? Somebody saying, "Okay, hotshot, you get in there," type of thing. And so, no, I was quiet as a church mouse.
Absolutely.
And
That was a very smart move. Absolutely. Wow.
yeah. As far as free time payment, at our program ended at 3:45 in the after. So I went from 12 to 3:45 every day in our program. And then mail call was at 4:30. After mail call, they opened the yard, opened the compound. You could go anywhere, library, you could go to the chapel, you could go out to the weight pile, you could go out to the track. They had a 1/3 mile track. And so I created I knew walking would be good for me. And I'm a rapid walker. So I knew from the very first day, I knew that I needed to be out there walking around that track. I didn't have any shoes. That was the only issue. I had black work boots. So I walked in those until I could get a pair of shoes with two 50-cent piece holes in the bottom, and I put cardboard in so that I could walk and not tear my feet up and actually you could get tennis shoes in the commissary. So I got shoes through the commissary. When those things came, I thought I was big business, man. I got a new pair of shoes. But I walked every day. I walked 6 miles a day. I walked 18 laps, 6 miles a day. It took me an hour and 18 minutes. I got to the point where I could probably do that anywhere with about 15 seconds variance. I was that consistent.
How old were you back then?
Excuse me?
How old were you back then?
Well, this would have been 17 years ago, 16 years ago.
Okay.
So I would have been, I would have been 48, 49.
That's still pretty good for your age. Wow. Very fit. Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so I kept track. I'm a numbers guy. So I kept track from the very first day. My goal was to walk to Denver. I thought I could walk 1,690 miles in the time I was there.
That could be an amazing thing to do and document it. Wow.
I'll never forget getting to be like 10 miles. And I go, I'll never get to Denver. What was I thinking? Well, with 6 months left, I passed Denver and headed into Utah and was about to go to California when I was released. So I got just to the edge of Utah and California.
Wow, quite a
From
few.
North Carolina.
That could be worthy of a book by itself.
but Payman, it was any time I could get into my own head and
Mhm.
create sort of, I talk about a world within a world. This was another world within those two, because I would walk and I'd say, okay, now I'm in Cincinnati. And
Mhm.
I think about people I knew, experiences I had,
Wow.
games we had against Xavier in Cincinnati, being at this great rib joint that looks over the Ohio River. I have all these memories, and I played them as I went through this journey. It was kind of cool.
Andy, a thought just came into my mind. So you said you were journaling a lot. Do you still have those journals?
Oh, I do. Yeah.
What would be amazing for you? Two things right now. One, you can transcribe it into a book. And number
Right.
two, again, start a podcast, and each episode will be just you relating and counting and telling each day, for example.
Oh,
So that could
wow.
be an amazing thing. Hey, tales from travels from around the country, whatever, you know, tales from tales and travels from myself, something along those lines, and each day you just relate the story with the emotion and all that. I don't know how long you wrote for each day, but as long as you can keep them 10-20 minutes, that can be, honestly, that could be a beautiful slam dunk.
Hmm.
Seriously.
Oh, thanks for that. Yeah.
Oh, seriously, amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I wrote my book Rebound Forward, which came out in January of 2018. I essentially wrote that in prison,
Wow.
and I'm a terrible, terrible handwriter, awful. I mean, the worst. And so I was so afraid my handwriting was so bad, I wouldn't recognize when I got home
I'm
what
the
I was
same.
writing. and and you could go to the CO and give them your ID, and they would loan you a typewriter. It was a
Wow.
type with the old
Yeah.
carbon
Yeah.
cartridge up on top,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
I burned through about 14 cartridges in the time I was there, because if I wrote 50 pages, I would then get the typewriter, because I wanted to be typewritten, so I would have it, and then I would type and get current. I would make copies of it. I would send it home in the mail to my wife, and then she kept a copy, because they were known to come through your locker and just take everything indiscriminately and just not even think twice about it. And I'm like, if I have this whole book disappear on me someday, I'm not going to be happy, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So I had to figure it out how I was going to just incrementally write this, handwrite it, type it, and send it. Handwrite it, type it, send it. And I did it
Yeah. Smart
consistently.
move. Wow.
And that was awesome. And so that if I decided I was going to write a book, I thought, at least I had 352 typewritten pages waiting for me when I got home. So
Wow.
I was busy. I
Oh,
was busy
yes. It's a good thing to
on
be busy in
purpose,
that environment. Absolutely. Otherwise, you go
on
crazy.
purpose.
So when you were there, did you notice any fights,
Yeah.
and did the guards allow the fights to go on, or they would break it right away?
Depends where it happened. If it happened in the yard, it'd take them a while to break it up. If it
Mhm.
happened in a unit, they could. There are guards, there are COs that are pretty close in proximity. Yeah,
Mhm.
it just depended. But not a lot of it, to be honest with you. Not a lot. A lot of arguments. A lot of I'm
So
right.
other than,
No, I'm right.
yeah, of course, because one thing that I heard from all these mob guys and mob movies, that these are guys that on the street they had no respect, but when they come inside the jail, the one thing they want is respect. And even Michael Franzese said the one thing that saved my life while I was in jail and prevented me from making enemies was, and that's one thing that other people that major time in jail told him. Listen, three golden words in jail: please, thank you, excuse me. Be polite, because these guys, the number one thing they want is respect. If you show them respect, they will let you alone. But if
I
you
think that's
try
pretty
to
wise.
if you try
I think
to
that's
show
pretty
that
wise.
you're a tough guy, you're not gonna last long there.
Yeah. I went another step. I
Mm,
added another level of maybe it's not respect, it was self-preservation. I think
mhm.
is I learned not to make eye contact.
Oh, because that was seen as confrontation, or
I didn't know what they were going to take it as, but I wasn't going to give them a choice.
just a friendly eye contact and smile. It's not accepted there, or
Oh no, no. I'm not going to make eye contact and smile to anybody, not out on the compound with guys I don't know.
Mm.
And I would be, I mean, I ate a lot of meals where I didn't know who was sitting with me, but there were 3 other people there.
But even one thing that we're told is that if you don't make eye contact, it shows you as a weak. In an environment like a prison, isn't that dangerous? If you show yourself as weak,
Could be,
then you expose
could
yourself
be,
to more, you know.
but it's the worst of 2 evils.
Mm,
Because if I look at you, you may say, hey, that guy looked at me wrong. Well, that's on
yeah.
me now.
And these are not the
And I,
kind of
I
guys.
wasn't willing to do that.
And these are not the kind of guys that you can have like intellectual debates. Hey, man, I was just trying to be friendly. This is not the place to
No,
have talks
no,
and whatnot. Okay.
no,
Yeah.
to try to talk common sense into
Yeah.
whoever, I'm not doing it. It just says I
Absolutely.
never wanted it to get that far.
That's smart. That's smart. Wow. You can write a book on that. How to stay alive in jail. You know.
You can go 2 years without making eye contact.
Maybe
How
not a
about that?
book, but at least a chapter, or at least an episode in your podcast. Wow. Awesome. So you mentioned now, one thing that you mentioned is learning the power of words and all these, the treatment you went through that. So, one thing that I've not only learned myself, but heard from countless people, 140 plus people on my podcast so far, is that we go through a lot of hardships, crap, tragedies. At the time, it hurts like a bee. But then when you look back at it, just like we talked earlier, they're meant to be there because, for our own growth and for you to go through the way I see it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the way that you had to go through pornography and how it affected and ruined your career and your life to some extent and put you in a hole for 2 years, taking a forced timeout, so to speak, for a couple of years.
Right.
That was meant to happen for you because even though basketball was a big chunk of your life, maybe basketball was not the purpose, the main reason you were here, but basketball was there to teach you some of the lessons you would need to allow you to survive in hostile environments such as in jail. But then your main purpose was for you to go through, the destructive, power of pornography, how it almost ruined your life and almost killed you. And then you bounced back, so to speak. You learned the lessons. You became a different person. Now your gift to the world and to the man is to show them, teach them, share your story so that they do not make that mistake. Would you say that this was one of your main purpose in this lifetime?
There's no question. And that's really well said,
Mhm.
because sometimes in the moment, we put so much importance on things. So I know for sure, because I was so committed to my craft that I was in the middle of it. And if you told me at that time, there will be a part of your life where you'll still love the game and you'll still like to be around the game and associated with it, but it's not the end all. You don't have to have it like you need oxygen.
Mhm.
I would have said, you're nuts. I'm going to be on the firing line in this profession and on the sideline and in these big time games. And I want to
Till the
be a head
last
coach
breath.
again. I would to you bet.
Mhm.
And now I can look back and say, it was awesome. It's still awesome. And fortunately, I've been able to stay involved in the game and work with coaches and do a lot of things with basketball. But man, if you would have told me that it was going to be removed from my life, I would have said, I'm going to get hit by a bus and get killed then, because it's not going to be because of my decision. Right. Well, I didn't know. But now as I look back, I see it. Isn't it crazy? I see it.
And you realize that there's things that are much more important than a basketball game
Yes. Yes.
in life. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Do you
I
think
never would have
you
thought
needed
that.
that as a wake up call for you to recalibrate you towards what really matters in life and bring you back to where you meant to go and meant to be
It
towards your
manifested
purpose?
itself as a
Mhm.
wake up call. I don't think that was the prime. I don't think that was the really the prime objective around it. I
Mhm.
think that it was, my life was not on a good course. I
Mhm.
didn't mention this, but this went on for 6.5 years and it was all done in secrecy.
Absolutely, can imagine.
And
Yeah.
And I have a phrase that I sort of adopted for myself, and it was like dragging around a dead man.
Mhm.
It took so much time and effort and energy, and just the time I spent on it. It was just like, instead of having two full-time jobs, or one full-time job, I had two. And I, it was time. It was time when I was given an opportunity in front of two federal agents to either come forward, okay, with the truth of what I had been involved in for, that amount of time, or not, or just say, get the hell out of my office. I'm calling my attorney, get out of here.
What they got you was that you were accessing porn on your work computer at work.
A very small amount, but most of it was at home on a laptop that I had,
Mm.
that I went back and forth with. But given those two alternatives, I mean, for me to get, let's say I get through what I was facing. I don't know if I could have or not, but let's say I did. I can only imagine I'd be in a bad place right now. I may be coaching at a high level, but I'd be in a bad place. I know that for a fact.
Mhm.
And that goes back to what you just said. These things that hurt so much in the moment, we can't calibrate where they come from and what that's really all about. But of course, later we always can. And I don't care. I don't care if you're John Wooden. I really believe that what we give to our profession is trumped so many times over if you have a gift that can really help people and help shape their lives and help. Because when I speak to a room of men, Payman, I've got their attention like you can't believe, because everything I say, they've either experienced, thought about doing, or will do. Almost verbatim. If you look at pornography stats for men, I mean, we're talking in the 90s, right?
Sure.
So there aren't many men in that room that don't have their heart pounding because they know that that they live at the same address I do, man.
So
And that's pretty powerful.
how do you overcome your addiction? Do you have any tips for any man listening right now? Because I can see that being a very destructive patterns, and that can really, affect man. I know some of the effect is that it saps your energy, your drive, your motivation, and all that, and of course, it affects your intimate relationship with your partner and all that. But
Yes.
do you have
Yes.
any tips? How do you overcome that? How do you stop yourself from accessing that?
I know one thing initially is you can't do it on your own,
Mm,
because you're the one that decided to go there. And
mm,
once you've been there, you know what it's like, and you know the reprieve that you get, and you know what it does for you. You have got to elicit a program, and you got to bring people around you and lock arms with them and say, I don't want to, this is not a life I want to live. But it is, I'll tell you, and I'm sure people have, just like people have got off heroin by themselves. Okay. Alcoholics have become recovering alcoholics just because they decided not to take another drink. I think every addiction has that possibility, but is it the norm? It's not the norm. The norm is we need people surrounding us to help us through. And there are programs. There's a lot of programs, and it's such a, I call it the 3 A's. Pornography is available. In our world these days, it's acceptable. Being that soft porn is part of television and movies and
absolutely.
billboards.
Yep.
And the most destructive part of the A's is it's anonymous. And that gave me a right, at least I thought it was a right, to access pornography and be okay, because I'm the only one that's seeing this. I'm not hurting anyone. It's not costing me anything. There are no victims. Well, even in pornography, there are victims. See, and I thought it was a victimless pursuit. And I mean, when we're that, when we can talk ourselves into doing things, Payman, that we know absolutely is wrong, then we can create through thoughts and words a way for us to make it okay. There's millions of people online tonight. Okay. I'm just one person. What I'm doing is not that bad, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it doesn't matter what affliction we're talking about or what addiction. Okay. We can create a whole world of words and thoughts that will make up about anything okay. Right.
Absolutely.
And that's the danger of being alone because, because it's just me. It's just me and my thoughts and what I decide. And I had no accountability because I didn't let anybody in.
So, one of the most difficult things to do is to realize and to accept, to admit to yourself that you have an issue, an addiction. So for you, was that easy to realize and to accept and admit to yourself that, hey, I have a problem here? Or was that something
Well,
that you only did once you were approached by the feds and
oh no,
and sent to jail? Was it before that or?
I knew from the get-go,
Okay.
but I put it back here so that I could do this.
Because you thought it's painless, it's not affecting anyone, I'm not hurting anyone.
Yes.
So it's not like
It's
I'm
not
going and
costing me
drinking.
anything.
Yeah. Okay.
And by the way, woe is me.
Mm,
Okay. And I deserve to have some comfort and be free of pain and have a place to go because I didn't grieve properly. This is still tormenting me, let's say. And I deserve this. In other words, the entitlement.
so you mentioned two events in your life happened that led to this. First, the passing of your child, and number two, losing your job. So would you say that if you hadn't lost your job, would you have gone down that path of addiction, or because the job would have kept you on your toes and busy and doing what you love?
Oh boy, that's a good question.
Mhm.
I would tend to say it wouldn't have happened because I would have still been coaching
Mm.
and when I'm involved in my craft, I'm in it
You're all in.
100%,
Yeah.
7 days a week, and I'm so consumed about the next game. I don't, alcohol was a friend of mine for a lot of years and would have continued to be a friend of mine. But that would have been much the same,
Mhm.
that wouldn't have been anything new. I would not probably not have looked for anything else. But and I always have to be careful, Payman. I mean, just really, really upfront and honest. I have to be so careful to not use what has happened in my life to justify the fact that I should be able to do this. No,
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's not the case. That's
Mhm.
not the case. And I'll tell you another shift in my treatment program, which I thought was profound. They will catch you when you say, well, I know, and I made a mistake. And I'm telling you, they jumped my butt so bad. They said, you didn't make a mistake. You meant to, you chose to.
Exactly.
Now think about that shift. And again, early in our program, I asked the listeners to think about just some things in their life and what is it that they tell themselves, because we tell ourselves a lot of things that aren't true.
Mhm.
What is it that I was telling myself that really wasn't true? That I made a mistake, and Payman, I deserve this because I had 2 children die and nobody knows that pain, and I should at least be able to go do this.
Yes, absolutely.
See, and I bought, I sold and bought that premise. I
That's the story you
created it
told
and I
yourself. Yeah.
bought it, and it became
Mhm.
that alter ego, if you would, that other person that lived inside this body and lived this secret life. And I lived by those rules and that mentality. Unfortunately, I did. But our mind is powerful and our will is powerful. And humans seek comfort.
Of course.
and
Yeah.
but it's all choice based. My mind is just so rock solid behind the fact that everything is choice based.
Totally. Absolutely. Wow. Choice are powerful. Absolutely. Wow. Ooh, that's fascinating. Now, let me see. So, one of the powerful principle, and that I talk my podcast is that of the story we tell ourselves, and the story we tell ourselves in our mind. You said you created a story for yourself to some way justify your actions.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
you mentioned that, and that led you towards a path of destruction, leading to jail and all that, and that's where you bounce back. So in your head, how did you do to change your story to bring your life to where you want it to be? Did you do it through the help of books, friends, family, mentors, or did you do that only you were able to that once you get into the prison system, and through that rehabilitation program that you were able to overcome your addiction and then slowly change your story that you were telling yourself in your head on a daily
That's a
basis?
really
How?
thoughtful question. And,
Yeah.
I had so much support. You mentioned so many people, mentors and family and friends.
Even the
Uh,
people in the prison system, were they supportive of you? Were they just doing their job, or?
one, a few particular folks got a little personal with me, which was fine. One guy came up, I remember he was a African-American fella, good guy, good natured guy. I mean, he could get mean, but he was a good natured guy. He was tall, and I assumed he might have played basketball, maybe. But he
Yeah.
came up one day and he said, "Hey, do you know this certain coach?" I said, "Yeah, yeah. In fact, I know him quite well." He goes, "I thought you did." He goes, "I've known him since he was a kid." And so that was a link between me and him. Now that's not common, and they're really probably not supposed to do that, but they're human beings.
Yeah.
And I always respected him for that, because it was just, hey, you know, I get it. You're here, and but let's just be people. And I always thought that was really cool that he did that. That meant a lot to me that he would. And there were a couple other situations, but not many, to be honest with you.
Okay. So all of that influenced and helped you towards changing the story in your mind. So how long did it take you to completely erase that false story from your mind? Or do you still have some leftovers of that still lingering in your mind and your
You
head?
know, if it comes up, I just squash it right away.
Mm,
I've learned to do that. So, but in answer to your question, 6 months,
okay.
almost 6 months to the day, I had a fallout like you can't believe. And I had fought this program, and I had fought the idea, Payman, that it wasn't a mistake. I mean, all of the
Mhm.
stinking thinking that I had coming in, it took me 6 months to disable all that. Okay. Now, only because of these doctors. We had 8 doctors and treatment specialists, and I mean, world-class people. They were
Yeah.
sitting in the forest in North Carolina, working with 100 men. It's amazing. I give them so much credit for doing that as a profession. But um, I got to the point where I was getting it intellectually. I was understanding what they were teaching intellectually, but it wasn't in the heart, and it wasn't in me to the point where it could be part of my daily thinking. But at a 6 point, and you'll appreciate this, at the 6 month mark, I'm in a room with 6 other men and our leader, our doctor. And these people are so good. I learned they can unravel you by saying the right 2 or 3 words. And I never would have believed this. And she said, I'll never forget. And it was my day. I just didn't know it yet, because she kind of picks times to not pick on, but just really get to the bottom of an individual within this group. And she said, well, Mr. Brown, how are you doing today? And of course, my answer was fine. And she followed with another question. And she followed with another question. And they were well-designed questions, because they didn't sound like she was digging for anything, but she really was. And she got me to where I got a little irritated and defensive.
What were some of those
And-
questions? If you still remember.
Mm.
After the how are you?
One of them was, how do you think you're doing in the community? Because we would have, once a day, we would have a community meeting where the morning and afternoon group would meet together in a big room. And I hadn't been verbal on purpose. I was just like a kid pouting in the corner. And
What was the one question she asked that really caught your attention and that you will always remember?
yeah, it was, how do you think you're doing in our community meetings?
Mm.
Well, what she meant was, because there were four, they chose four mentors. They were peer mentors. And at all times there were four peer mentors. Well, I was never chosen. Okay, so you know that she knows that I think I should be a mentor.
Given your background, all that. Yes.
Exactly. Okay, leadership, the whole thing, right?
Did she know about
So-
your background or?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She read every word
Okay.
that she could get her. Believe me, she knew more than I knew about me. And so her question as to how are you doing in the community, do you think, meant how are you doing being just in the crowd and not being in charge, not being someone that's different and special than everybody else. That's really what her question meant. And I didn't understand it at the time. And I said, oh, I think I'm doing okay. I think the meetings are good. I go,
how do you understand the meaning of that question? Was that through self-reflection, or did she led you to understanding that herself?
it's just a very black and white question. It had a lot packed into it, but I
Sure.
didn't pick that up. I didn't pick it up. But what happened was she followed it up with, does it bother you that you're not a mentor?
Mhm.
And
Wow.
my answer was that it didn't bother me, but she knew by my answer that it probably bothered me a lot.
You didn't
And
really
she
mean
kind of
it, yeah.
triggered. So I was kind of triggered by that.
Mhm.
And then question by question by question. And I started to get loud and I started to get very defensive. And she said, that's it. And she said something that changed. I think this one comment changed my life, or gave me a
Wow.
choice to change my life more than anything I've ever heard. And certainly in that setting
Mhm.
was, Mr. Brown, from this point forward, if you know this is a volunteer program, from this point forward, all right, if you don't like what's going on here, you can leave. You can go into general population, or we'll send you to Atlanta or wherever. She goes, but as long as you're here, this will be the last time that you will be allowed to use the word coach.
Wow.
And I don't ever remember going from zero to rage ever in my life until that time.
The
I immediately
identity
stood
of
up.
yourself. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it was the most incriminating, most offensive thing that I thought that I had ever heard. How dare she tell me?
Because in
What
your
I-
identity, your mind, you're a coach. That's part of your
Yes.
the fabric of who you are.
Yes, she must have just ripped my heart out.
Mhm.
And I stood up. I don't know why, but I stood up and I took a big step. She was about 15 feet away, but I took a big step, about 10, 12 feet away towards her. And I immediately caught myself thinking, this ain't going to end well. for me.
Mm.
Because next
So
thing
what are
you
you
know, there's
thinking? You
going
were
to be
trying to go in and hit her, or
no, yeah, probably just as
wow,
um, um, fight or fly, kind of
self-defense, I
response.
guess. Yeah.
And
Mm,
I took one step and then I stopped. And
mhm.
I remember my face, I thought it was going to just pop right off my head. It was so warm and I'd never been that rageful in that moment. So then I sit down and we got in a discussion. Now you got to understand, this is an hour and a half. This is a 90-minute process group. And none of the other 6 guys said anything that day. That day was designed for me. And she was so good at what she did that she carefully came in, asked a very benign question of, how are you doing today? That's how it all started.
Yes.
And I was the only one that talked that day. And I was in there an hour after the 90 minutes
So that
because,
question was that directed at you, at all of the guys there?
oh no, that was about coach. That was
No, no,
directed
no,
at me.
no. About how are you doing today? That first
Well,
initial
yeah, in
question.
general. And then she asked me personally to kind of get me started. She
Mm.
had a plan on how she was going to take me. She was going to break me that day. That's the
She
best
knew
way
how
to
to
put it.
trigger you. Absolutely. Wow.
She's going to break me. Absolutely. And she did. And I argued with her about this coach thing like you can't imagine.
Oh, I can
She
imagine.
goes,
Oh,
if you
yeah.
defend yourself one more time, she goes, you're just digging a hole deeper every time you say that word. And she goes, if you say it one more time, I'm calling the CO and you can get your stuff and you can leave. Now I knew I had to return to a PO. Okay. When I returned home and I had to be in a halfway house and work my way back into life in Ames, Iowa. And the last thing I'm going to do is not have a sterling grade and a great looking report card when I got back. This guy was compliant. He worked as hard as he could. That's what I wanted. And so, no, I wasn't going to leave that program. That would have been the worst cop out that a person could ever do.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
man, I'm telling you, she and I battled and battled, and I started to cry and I wept. And I've wept like this before, obviously, but I wept as hard as a person can. And I mean, I had stuff rolling down my face, out of my nose. I was a mess. And at one time on the floor, and once I got to the floor, I swear I couldn't get up. She sat there for an hour with me.
She was there when you were.
She sat there because everybody else after 90 minutes left. We sat in that room together, the two of us, and she said very little, but she knew that I had to be broken. It was one of the most powerful things I can even explain that could happen to anyone. And it broke me in half.
To reconstruct you. Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
And so I had to get to that point before I could ever even think about changing my words of responsibility, let alone sit here with you and have these conversations. Can you imagine how far away I was
Sure.
from that at that time? But without being broken, you can't become whole.
Yeah, absolutely. You can bounce back, so to speak. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
Had I walked out of that room that day and got sent to another facility, oh
Game
my
over.
goodness. I don't want to even think. I don't even
Yeah.
want to think about the way the rest of my life would have gone.
So now,
That was such a pivotal moment, Payman.
oh, I can
It
imagine.
was so hurt. It was so painful. I remember screaming, you can't take this away from me. I love basketball more than I would love to have a recording of what I was screaming, but I was screaming from my gut like I never have before. And
Yeah.
thank goodness for Dr. Lacey Frazier,
You
who
still in
sat
touch
there.
with her?
I did for a while, and then they actually ended the program. And it became a drug rehab program, as I was
Mm.
told.
You
So
know,
she's still in the system. But for the first 3 years, I wrote her and stayed in touch. I think a lot about now. She legally can't talk to me on the phone or write a letter or anything back to me, but I could at least convey to her how my life is going.
you know,
Um,
let me share with you a quick story. You know Jordan Belfort, right? The Wolf of Wall Street, the guy that, so basically he did a lot of bad things, even all the mob guys. And one of the most powerful episode they did was, especially Jordan Belfort, he did a podcast, live podcast with a federal agent that put him in jail. So they were just like becoming buddy buddy because say, listen, I understand you did a job, I did mine, fair enough. And they're good friends now. Even Michael Francesi, the guy, Giuliani, the big shot former lawyer of New York, he was on his ass, so to speak, like you can't imagine, his entire family, so much that the mob had put, like as I say, a contract on Giuliani's life. That's the only time they put a contract on the life of law enforcement, because he destroyed all of the mobs. But then they never did it because they knew that, hey, this guy was just doing his job. As long as you don't frame us, we're fine. You do your job, we do my job. If you catch me fair and square, we respect that. And that's what they did. And they did a podcast with Michael Francesi and Giuliani. They were talking like buddies to share the stories and all that. Amazing. Now you, without just came to mind with that amazing doctor that changed your life. Would be phenomenal for you guys to get together on a Zoom call, on a podcast, and just talk and share what she did to you to save your life, to destroy your false beliefs so you can reconstruct yourself, bounce back. That could be probably one of the most powerful gifts you can give to all the other men out there. So you mentioned that legally she's not allowed to do anything, but maybe reach out and tell her your angle that, hey, you changed my life. And that's something that we need to do something to bring, because this was a gift. You know, we all go through, as we've been talking earlier, we all go through craps. It hurt like a bitch, so to speak. But then we are meant to go to that to become the person we're meant to be. That's step number one. Step number two, to share that gift with the world. I think that would be one of the most powerful gifts that you can give to the world, and that can really solidify the heritage you want to build in now moving forward in the second quarter of your life, which is to giving back and showing hope, showing the path to other men who are suffering from not just pornography, but any kind of addiction. I think that would be one of the most powerful, poignant conversation and message and gift you can bring to the world, Randy.
It would be amazing. I don't know if it's possible, but it would be really amazing.
It all started with just reaching out to her and getting on a person. I don't know if you can, getting on a call with her, explain your motivation. If not, send her a video, just 5-10 minute video. Tell her, listen, you changed my life. Now a different person. I'm moving on. I understand what this was meant for. This was for me. We all come to life to overcome challenges, to grow, and then take that gift, share it with the world. And I think this is my gift, and you played a major role in that. And I want to, now I'm on my quest to inspire, to empower, to show the path other men. And I would be honored to have you do a podcast, whatever you want to do together for 10-20 minutes, share what you're doing so that we can share this gift to other men as well.
Wouldn't that be something?
Hey,
I think you're right.
It doesn't cost anything to start. Just reach out to her. I don't know, email, letter, or even I would say the most personal way would be, short of calling her, send her a video. You can upload it to YouTube, send it to her. Keep it short,
so powerful.
10-20 minutes, 25-10 minutes. Seriously, Randy, that would be one of the most powerful. I think this would really solidify the legacy you want to build. And that would open even opportunities for collaboration, partnerships between you two, especially when you go on your speaking engagements on those platforms. You can invite her in because she saved your life. You mentioned it yourself. She changed your life.
No question. Without her that
she
day,
has to understand the power that she has in her hands, not only for you, but for other men out there.
Right.
Not just men, but women too, Seriously, Randy, that would be probably the number one advice, if I may.
Yes.
To offer you, it's this. Reach out to her. Open your heart to her. Say, listen, whatever her name is, you changed my life. You saw me breaking down. It was because of you that I was able to bounce back. And now I understood the reason for that, the lesson for that. I'm wiser and all that. I changed my life, turned around. And I understand why this happened. This was a gift. And we were meant to meet, you and me. You were there. We connected at the soul level. You were there for me to help me grow as a person. And then now I understand this was a wonderful. our stories, one of the saying I have is our stories are our gifts. This is my story. You're part of it.
Right.
We're working toward the same thing. Let's bring that to the masses together. That could be a book, a podcast, a video, eventually speaking engagements. Again, Randy, I hate to sound like a broken record, but
Mm,
the writing's on the wall. This is your time
yeah.
to do your podcast. Bring these people, that lady, that angel, and obviously you can also bring the people you have an connection in basketball and all that. And also, seriously, if you have your diaries, your journals, you can do an entire
Mhm.
podcast just on that. So now
Oh,
you
yeah.
can do intro. You say this was from a past life from 20 years ago. Now I'm a completely different person, but I still found those, and I feel that these would be valuable to share with the world. People will love it. You will blow up in no time, brother.
Mm. That's a wonderful idea. It really is. I got to put some thought to that.
Seriously, and you know where to find me. I'm here for you. So again, listen, I hate to end this call. I have another call in 5 minutes, but we'll have to
Yes.
do a part 3 because I still want to talk about so many other things. Like
Okay.
how do you bounce back? How was it for you to get back into to life, getting a job and all that? How to get back on your feet? All of that we would do it on part 3. So I have my calendar, book a time for next week. It's gonna be like a mini series, the Randy and Payment show, Let's do a podcast together. Seriously, I'm not joking.
Well, we
Not
could,
just
yeah. I
and me
mean,
inviting you, but me and you doing a show each week.
right,
That would be
right.
phenomenal.
We
If
could
you're
talk
down,
about
I'm
that.
down. If you're
We could
down, I'm
talk
down.
about basketball
Absolutely.
just as long too.
Basketball, life stories, life lessons. And,
Popovich, the whole deal, right?
and that's one of
Well,
the things I always say. For me, the two greatest schools of life have been sports and travel. For
right,
me,
right.
football, soccer as a player, as a coach. Mine, not at the same level as you, but I played pretty decent level when I was playing in France up to my under 15 nationals. But then that's a different story. So, yeah, sports can be tremendously powerful as
Yeah,
schools of
no doubt.
life.
No doubt. I look forward to it.
Absolutely. Listen, Randy, absolute honor each time talking to you. The 2 hours just flew by, and looking very much forward for part 3 next week, brother. So book that and we'll make it happen. We're still a
As am I.
lot to
Yeah,
cover. All
yeah.
right. Stay safe, stay awesome, keep shining your
Thanks.
light. But
Thanks,
remember,
Damon.
I have homework for you if I may. Reach out to that lady.
Yes.
Seriously, because that's the most powerful gift. If you change your life in that room, imagine what you guys together can do together on a bigger platform.
Yeah.
That's a
I'm with
question
you.
I wanna leave you with, and think also about podcasting because you have so much gifts to share with the world. All it takes is just an hour of your day.
Yeah.
Because again, for me, it's all about the impact. And for you, you're at the right
Right.
time, right place. Everything happens in the due time. So with this, I'll leave you. Have a wonderful day. Lots of good food for thought for you. So I'll leave you about a week to digest all of that, and we'll definitely resume next week for part 3 of the Randy and Payment Show.
That's awesome, Payman.
All
I
right,
love it.
brother. Take care.
Look
Bye-bye.
forward to it. See you, man.
Ciao.